Hello everyone and welcome to another session by the Edyst team. And today there's going to be a very different session we're doing. You've been following us, we've been doing a lot of Code Vita, Hack with Infi and many such competitive programs. But over the last few months, we've got a lot of requests from students about, we are able to pass the written tests and we're improving our coding a lot. But, how should we actually go about and, go about our projects? Because the projects is a really, really important part of the entire interview process. So how does one go about that? So today we're going to discuss a lot of things, but the first thing I want to talk to you about is projects and what are the simplest technologies you can use to start your projects, why you should do a project, and in today's world, which kind of projects will help you get the best employment opportunities. And with me also joining in this session is my co-founder and the course instructor for a great new course we've launched. It's Abhinandan here. Hi, Abhinandan.
Hey, Aneeq. Hey, guys.
So welcome back. For those of you who've been our really big fans, you'll know last year Abhinandan covered a lot of Code Vita questions for us. So he's a really good programmer, very good at competitive programming as well. And so, yeah, we'll hear more from him as the session goes on. So let me just start, moving to my slides now for a moment. Yeah, let's just go there. Okay, all right. So here we are. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our Web Master Bootcamp, but also about the typical interview process. So today, your typical interview process is in these rounds. Okay, depending on which company you're going for. If you're going for a services company, then you would have to give the aptitude round. Product companies generally don't have aptitude rounds, but they have multiple coding rounds. But today in 2020, if you're going for any sort of interviews or any sort of companies that you're attending, you have to give the aptitude round, you have to give the coding rounds, then there's a technical round, which is interviews, and then there are HR interviews. Okay, so these two are generally written or system based. And while I put 1 and 2 over here, there can be up to 2-3 coding rounds over here. 2 to 3 coding rounds are possible here. For example, in Code Vita, if you want to go for digital, you have to give 2 coding rounds and so on. Right now, many of you already know how to do these things, or at least have heard about how to do it. You are probably practicing on how you can go about solving these things, your aptitude and coding rounds, but very few have knowledge on technical rounds, interviews, and HR interviews. Today, specifically, we are going to talk about the technical rounds and interviews and what actually is asked in them. So there are two important things that are asked in this technical rounds. Number one is your theoretical knowledge of databases, of object-oriented programming, of whichever language that you prefer. And we have covered that in different videos. You can check it out over there. But the majority part of your technical interview is going to be about the projects. And so it's really important that you have a project, because without a project, you're just somebody who has passed the written round, but you have nothing to talk about in the technical interview. The second thing is, let's say you are one of those people who have already graduated, or the placement opportunities at your college are not that much, and you are applying to different companies. If your resume has projects, not even one, if you have multiple projects, your ability to get shortlisted for that opportunity and get an interview is way more, at least 10x higher, because they want to know that you have the skills that you actually use in the job. So for example, if it's a full stack web development job, or if it's an Android development job, you can't say that, oh, I know basics of C, or I know advanced C, or I know advanced C++, or I know advanced Python, but I've never done Android. But sir, if you give me an opportunity, then I am going to surely learn Android. They will always prefer somebody who's actually learned full stack web development, learned Android, and then has come and has applied for their interview process. So that's the importance of a project. We've had many students who were able to clear the coding rounds, and they struggled a lot in the technical interviews. But those students who did not struggle in the technical interviews were those who had really amazing projects. If you have a project that is great, then your technical interview goes by really quickly because you have done the project yourself. I know there's also a trend of people just getting the project from somewhere without really learning anything. That while that will help you sometimes with certain evaluations, that will definitely not help you in your job interview, because just 2 questions and anybody can figure out whether you've actually learned those things or not. So it's really important to have a project on your resume and something that you can do by yourself. With this project, you can actually go and start applying to companies, start applying to startups, big companies, and your resume will get shortlisted faster. Now, typically, the areas in which students do project these days is one of these 6 fields. From the company side, the most in-demand ones are things like full stack web development and Android. Even data science is really in high demand. The only problem with data science, or rather a requisite of data science, is that you need to be good at your math skills. So if your maths, let's say statistics, is not that great, then it becomes a little bit difficult. But today we are here to talk about full stack web development, and especially a new course that Edyst has launched. It's called the Web Master Bootcamp, which you can, if you're interested, you can just go and check out this link. It's also in the description below, bit.ly/Edyst-webmaster. It's also in the description below, right? So you can check that out in the description, and you can check out this course. And we're going to talk more about it. And for that, we have Abhinandan here as well. So just a couple of thoughts before I hand it over to him. Number one, this course gives you a ton of projects that will help you out when you go for the your interviews, and that doesn't mean that the other projects are not helpful, that is other fields are not helpful, but especially this kind of field, full stack web development, it gives you exposure to so many technologies that you can fit in anywhere in any organization. And to tell you more about that, we have Abhinandan over here. So Abhinandan, I'm just handing it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing the screen right now, and I'll just hand it over to you. And I want you to start with, I have a lot of students here who are probably thinking, what even does full stack web development mean? Like, what exactly is a website? How does web development work? Why should we even learn web development? So, I hand it over to you right now.
Right. Yeah. So let me just quickly walk you through a couple of, like, you guys can see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Right. Lovely. So when you have a job title like software engineer, software developer, that's quite a general term, right? There's a bunch of software out there in the world. You have software that runs on small devices. You have desktop software. You have mobile software. Any Android app that you write, end of the day, is a software, right? So software engineer, by itself doesn't tell you much about what kind of software you'll be writing.
Right.
Whereas when you talk about something like a full stack web application developer or a full stack web engineer, that kind of narrows down your responsibilities as a software engineer, right? So as a full stack or as a web developer, more general, we'll come to what full stack means. Just focus on the term web developer for now.
Okay.
As a web developer, you're primarily interested in writing web applications. It can range from designing simple web pages, like some of the blogs that you might have seen, to designing full-fledged applications. Websites that look and feel like an actual application. Think something like YouTube or Instagram, right? You can make your own account. You can follow your friends there. You can upload files. There's just so much functionality packed into something that runs on everybody's browsers, right? So as a web developer, you'll be in charge of making software for the web, software that runs on a browser, right? Chrome, Firefox, Chrome on desktop, on mobile. So it's basically any time that you interact with the internet, right? Mostly it is to visit a web page or a web application, right? You go to Google Docs to make a document, you go to YouTube to view a video. Anytime that you do that, you are interacting with web software. And as a web application developer, that's what you'll be building.
Okay. And so I'll be building, just to understand that, so I'll be building websites like, let's say, CricBuzz to understand more about cricket, YouTube, where people are watching this video right now.
Exactly.
Even Edyst.com is a website, and
yeah.
Right? Okay.
Edyst.com is a web application. For those of you who are already on there, you would have seen just a vast variety of functionality that it has. It has a code editor. It has a compiler. There's a leaderboard that's being computed. So it's more than just a simple web page. These are all web applications, right? They do a lot more than just you're absolutely right.
So I understand that this is a web application. Okay. So what are exactly the components? Like when I think of a website, for me, I just go and type www.edyst.com or google.com, all of these things. Is there really a lot to this? Like, are there many parts to this website? What's happening? What do engineers work on when they say that they're working on a website?
Okay, that's a great question. So the web application that you see, right? For instance, if you want, let's take the example of Instagram. Okay,
Okay.
I'm just gonna quickly open one of my favorite public Instagram accounts,
Okay.
Kushil,
All right.
the most famous internet cat that there is out there.
All right. Okay.
So yeah, and so let me try and motivate what are the different parts to a web application by looking at this, right?
Okay.
So this is a website. It's the Instagram web application. It has a few parts. So the first part of this entire piece of software, right, that a web developer would build is the stuff that you can see in your browser.
Okay.
So I'm using Chrome, and you know, I can see that these are images, right? I can see that there are a couple of buttons here. This is an image. If I scroll down, there's going to be some text here, like logins to Instagram. So there are all these different elements that a browser is, you know, is trying to display. And the end user, like someone like me or you or anybody who has an Instagram account who's using it on the web, they can interact with these elements. Right?
Okay.
So the first half of building Instagram, okay, if you want to build Instagram from scratch, one of the parts is to build websites, okay, things that you can see, things that your web browser will help you, you know, visualize. So bunch
that's
of
like
images, text.
like that logo, even that Instagram logo is something that has to be there. These photos are there. Then there are, like, you have to tell them that there are these circles, which are, I guess, stories. And then clicking these buttons, each will have a different function. Right?
The color of the button, the fact that, you know, I'm just going to zoom in here for a bit. You can see that the edges are rounded, right?
Yeah.
So even tiny details like that are what you want to be able, as a software developer, as a web application developer.
Right.
Half of my job is to tell the browser, is to find a way to tell the browser that, hey, these are the elements that I want my users to see. Arrange them in the following format. Give my button a blue color. Make the text white. Give a nice, you know, animation around this, this profile picture, right? I want 6 different items over here. I want 3 different columns over here.
Right.
So the look and feel of a website, right? What does the user see? The second half to all of this is what the user does not see. Okay. For instance, Pushing is obviously not the only Instagram account in the world. There are millions of them, right?
Yes.
Now, nobody is going to sit and design every single web page by hand. Okay? Instagram doesn't have that many engineers. So what they need is some piece of software that can store the more abstract things. For instance, that can store that, hey, this is an Instagram account. It should have a name called Pushing. What is the profile picture for that account? What are all the photos that this account has stored? Okay. Nothing to do with the visuals, nothing to do with what the user sees. There is one piece of software that the user does not see, which is in charge of handling all the other stuff.
Got it. Yeah.
What does it take to make this web page? It's not just the styles, right? You need to have the name of the account. What happens when you click follow? How many followers do you have? Who's following your account? So what happens when you click the like button?
Right. So if I were to think of it more like it's when we are doing programming, we keep certain values in variables, and that variable values can keep changing, right?
Exactly.
So you're saying that because I went to Instagram.com/Pushin, I got Pushin's name and I got Pushin's profile picture. But if I go to different ones, something will tell my browser that you have to put this separate name over here and the separate profile picture over here. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's one piece of software that is in charge of handling users, handling accounts, handling what happens when you upload an image. Okay. That sort of functionality, as an end user, as somebody who's on Instagram.com, I don't really care how you're storing files. Right. I don't care if you use AWS. I don't care if you're using Google. I just want to see my pictures. Right. So some Instagram engineers, their only job is to make sure that the files get uploaded in the right format. Okay. And if I go to this Instagram/Pushing or Instagram/whichever account, right? It is that software's job, the second half of this entire application, that tells my browser, hey, these are the 20 things that you have to display.
Right.
And then the first half of the software that we talked about, that is running in the browser, it will take those 20 things, it will take all these images, it will take the name of the profile and all, and then it will arrange it in a beautiful fashion.
Correct. Okay? So one part is displaying everything, and one part is telling us, you know, when you're displaying a picture, which picture you're supposed to display, or when you're displaying a name, what's the name is supposed to. And so what are these different parts called? Like, I think some students have already heard of these different things. So what would these different parts be called?
So anything that you see as a user, okay, of the application, of the web application, anything that you can see, touch, interact with, drag around, anything that's running in your browser, that is a front end software.
Right.
Okay. So when you write an application, you're going to write the front end for it.
Got it.
Front end is what you can see. Right. And then all the complex stuff related to file uploads, login, image uploads, storing profiles, followers, etc. That is
following people. End. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is the back end of the application, right? And there's this term that you used at the start that I'm sure people, I don't know if they've heard front end, back end, but I'm sure they've heard the word full stack.
Full stack, yeah.
Yeah. So there's this really interesting article where this guy says that full stack is a myth. Okay. First of all, what is full stack? Full stack is somebody who does both the front end and the back end. Okay. And that's kind of the hype today. You know, everybody wants to be a full stack engineer.
Right.
But what people don't understand is that becoming a full stack engineer is not as simple as saying, oh, I'm going to learn React, I'm going to learn Express and MongoDB. So am I a full stack developer? No, you're not. You're a React developer, you're an Express developer, and you're a MongoDB developer, right? The day React changes to Angular or Vue or something else, Express changes to something else, you know, those skills may not necessarily translate. So full stack developers are somebody who's expected to be, in charge of the front end part. So displaying this UI, and is also expected to be in charge of the back end stuff. So building a database or managing your database or, you know, building login systems and all.
So when you're speaking about these like React, Express, all of those things, if you can boil it down to like, if I want to learn front end, what are the technologies that I should know if I'm talking about front end? So what are some of the technologies that I should, like, what is, like, as you were saying that, you know, the browser displays things on the front end. So what exactly is browser, which technologies is the browser using to display things on the front end?
1 second.
Yeah.
Right. So this is kind of a very simplistic view of what or how this entire web application is going to look like. Okay. So in the browser, okay, the browser doesn't care about whether you know React or Angular or Bootstrap. The browser doesn't care about frameworks.
Right.
Okay. The only three things that it cares about are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are the only three things that the browser understands, right? It doesn't care about what framework you're using. And we'll get to that later. But the good news, or one of the reasons why I like to recommend people to learn the web technologies is because of how simple they are, right? There's not a lot of complexity. At the end of the day, the browser, you know, just understands three things. That's it. And each of these three things does a separate job of its own. Right?
So what's the difference between HTML, CSS, JavaScript? And to be clear, we are not at all talking about any database, any backend right now. This is just about the browser.
Yeah. So this is just the front end. So whatever runs in the browser, right?
Correct.
So HTML. So Aneeq, imagine if you were building a house. Okay. How would you go around doing that? So even before you put the first brick on the ground, you want to have a map in your head, right?
Yes.
So you know that, hey, you know what? I want 4 bedrooms.
Right.
I want 2 bathrooms. I want, walls, I want a ceiling, maybe I want 2 floors. So I want
like a structure. So at least I plan for a structure basically.
Exactly, the structure. So you're not too worried about where the bathroom is going to be and what. You're just worried about what you want.
Right.
So if I were to extend this into this page, for instance, I know that I want something that helps me write pushing, some text object. I know that I have to insert a few images. Okay.
Right.
So HTML is in charge of, so HTML is basically the language that you will use to define this structure. Okay. Using HTML, you can say, hey, you know what? I want a paragraph that talks about this account. So for instance, the paragraph that says the official account of Pushing the Cat shop new and exclusive merchandise. I want, 4 or 5 different images for my image gallery.
And the images should be like in these squares. So like, that's like me saying that I want walls here. So it's like, I want my images in these squares.
Okay. So that's an interesting distinction. Right. Now, the structure of the web page doesn't care about whether you have it in a square or you have it in a circle.
Okay.
Right. That is the visual appearance of how your image looks like.
So that will not be taken care of by HTML over there. We're just saying that we want images here. That is HTML. But how the images come is not HTML.
Is not HTML. And what that is the responsibility of something called as CSS.
Okay.
Okay. And using CSS, you can say that, for instance, using HTML, you'll say, I want a button and the text should be follow. Okay. Great. Using CSS, you will say, I take this button and give it a blue background color, give it a white color for the text inside it, give it a particular size. So make it exactly this size and give it rounded corners.
Got it.
So the presentation, the look and feel. For instance, HTML is going to say, hey, you know what, man, just give me 12 images. Okay, I want 12 images on this web page. You're telling the browser, this web page has 12 images. CSS, on the other hand, will tell the browser, take these 12 images and arrange them in this grid sort.
Okay.
Right. So 3 per column, 3 columns, and then in each column, you're going to have this separation, this separation. CSS will tell, once you hover over this thing, you see how it becomes dark, right?
It becomes dark and I see like buttons. Yeah.
Anything that modifies the look and feel.
That's
so for
CSS.
Instance, in your house building analogy, you decide on the structure, but when you say, hey, you know what, the 2 bedrooms have to be close together, the bathroom has to be adjoining, my walls have to be blue in color,
right?
My bed has to be a certain color, certain size and shape. That is all CSS.
Got it. Right? Got it.
And the final piece of this entire puzzle, the last thing that the browser cares about, that the browser understands, is JavaScript.
Right? Okay.
And
so before you go ahead, one very silly question: does JavaScript have anything to do with Java?
Oh no.
No.
Yeah.
It's just the name, right? It has nothing to do with the actual Java programming language.
No. And this is one of the fun, I think, times that people will have learning JavaScript. And I wish it was different, but it's not. Is that sometimes JavaScript, okay, it's like the name, okay, JavaScript, and you think it's Java, it might have something to do with Java, it's nothing like it. Okay. Similarly, inside JavaScript, there'll be a bunch of stuff that you think are going to do something, but again, that's probably a story for a different day.
Yeah, we'll come back to that later. Okay, so JavaScript has nothing to do with Java. HTML makes the structure, CSS tells us how visually it's supposed to look. And so what does JavaScript do?
Oh, so JavaScript is what makes your website fun. Okay, so just having this by itself does nothing for me. So if I click on this button and nothing happens, then this page is kind of useless for me, right?
Yeah.
I can view a few pictures, but that's it. So JavaScript is the part of this entire the front-end web application that makes sure that the user can interact with the web page. Okay, which means if I click on follow, okay, it should do something to my web page. So it should, for instance, if I click on follow, it's going to pop this element up.
Right.
Okay. It's a response to the user trying to do something.
Okay.
The search is a great feature, right?
Yeah.
So I can search for stuff on Instagram.
Right.
So when I click on things here and I press the enter button, all of this is a user interaction, right? So in really simple terms, for people who have done some amount of programming, C++ or Python, you know how you have to take input from the user,
Right.
Your C in.
Yes.
Yeah, that is handled by JavaScript. It's going to take user input, and there are a bunch of ways of taking user input. User can click, user can type, user can drag things around. So there's a bunch of ways that you can interact with your website.
Can I say that HTML and CSS, HTML gives me structure, CSS gives me the style, and JavaScript adds logic to my web page? Can I say that?
Yeah. That would be a good way of putting it.
Okay, so like, for example, if I try to follow someone, but if it's a private account, right, then it's supposed to give me a certain alert, right? So that kind of alert comes from JavaScript. Whether that account is private or not, that probably the backend will handle. That's a different story. But at least on the front end, if I'm successfully following this account on Instagram, it will give me a success message. If I'm not being successful in following this account, it will give me a failure message, and so on, right? And so that kind of logic is handled by JavaScript, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So just going back, I mean, you had like this cool flow chart, right? And so you were saying that, we have the back end, we have the front end, and so on the front end, we were talking about HTML, CSS, JavaScript. We've discussed that. And the back end, it looks more like, databases and, servers. And I think we'll go into that a bit more, I think, because we're going to do many of these sessions, right? What I want you to show everybody else is what we were discussing about a bit earlier, is how easy it is to pick up HTML, CSS, right? And so can you show these guys that, one, that things that they read online is anyways HTML, CSS, and how can they, very quickly, just see that it's not a difficult thing to do, right? It's something that anybody there with almost no programming experience can pick up HTML or CSS.
So I think the best way to kind of show people how, I won't call it, okay, to show how easy it is, okay, to get started, for a beginner, and how more than easy, Aneeq, I think it's about how fun it is to get started. Okay. So I'm going to do something a little ambitious. Okay.
All right.
We're going to take a website from, one second. Yeah, we're going to take a website from New York Times.
All right.
One of the world's biggest news publications online.
Right.
And, you would think like for a beginner, are we actually going to end up building this? The answer is yes.
Because it does look like, they would have paid a lot of developers to make this website the way it looks. There'll be a bunch of engineers who will be doing this. And it does look, I mean, I would think it's a very complex thing to get done, right? To create like what they've done right now over here.
Yeah. And if you look at the salaries of some of the engineers that work in New York Times, okay, I think that is going to be the biggest motivation for anybody who's going to become a web developer. Right? Just the insane amount of money that good web developers stand to make in today's market.
Right. Very high in demand. Very high in demand today.
Extremely high demand, and you have to understand, somebody who has command over these three simple technologies, right? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, is able to design something as beautiful as this.
Right.
And on the face of it, it would look complex. And I can understand somebody who's not coded a single line, or people who are used to these C++, Java style programs.
Right.
That just run on the terminal, right? Such a boring thing. It's such a dull thing. On the other hand, web development is so fun because it's so visual, right? So good developers, okay, what they're going to do when they see a page like this is they're first going to try and identify what are my structural elements. Okay. So on the first glance, if I just scroll through, it seems like there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of different type of stuff, but actually there isn't. Okay. There are a few elements that keep repeating again and again. For instance, take a look at this piece here, best movies of 2019, right?
It's like a heading.
It's a text. It's like a heading, right? It's like the main heading of the web page. Right. Stuff like this, these titles prove it's a paragraph of text. This is an image. Okay. The image has a small caption.
Right.
You see these little, underlined stuff over here.
Which is like the URL or link.
That's a link. right?
Right.
You click on this and it's going to take you to a new web page.
Right.
The text might change, like this has a different text, this has a different text, but conceptually they're the same thing, right? They're just paragraphs. So if I just copy paste all of this, okay, everything that I see here, if I just copy paste it into, and I tell the browser that, hey man, take all of this and just show me what it is like, okay? The browser actually does a pretty good job. So we'll see how to build this really quickly, okay? And for beginner developers, this is my advice, okay? You don't necessarily do this as once you're more experienced, but for a beginner developer, this is how I go about it. Find a website that you want to clone, okay? Find a website that you want to build a copy of. In this case, I want to build a copy of this article over here. The first thing that you want, okay, is you want to create an HTML file.
Right.
Okay, that's how you start. And then you slowly start filling things in. And we'll see how we do that in just a minute. Okay. So let me just open up my web editor over here.
And so we begin with an HTML file, is what you're saying.
So make a folder anywhere on your desktop or wherever, and just create a new file called index.html. Okay, you can call it whatever you want.
Okay.
But for now, just stick to the convention. Okay, just call it index.html. You'll see that it's an empty file. And this is where all the magic is going to happen, Aneeq. Okay. This is where I'm going to put all the content. For instance, best movies, these titles, all the paragraphs that you see, all the text and images that you see, I'm going to put it in here. Then using HTML tags, I'm going to give it structure.
All right. Okay.
And
so
finally,
this is just the content. And then you're going to give it structure on HTML. And if I can guess, CSS will give the styles, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's absolutely right. So the best part about HTML, not HTML, the whole front-end thing is how far you can get with just a single file. So all of this content, structure, styling, even functionality to some degree, all of that can be in one single file. Okay, which is what makes it so easy for people to start off. You don't have to have like 25. In actual development, like when you get hired and when you join these big companies as a developer, the process of building a website is slightly different there. There'll be a lot more than just one HTML file. But to begin with, I think this is an excellent way of going about it. You don't have to worry about a lot of file folder structures and all. So just create a new directory, create a new file, index.html, and let's get started.
All right. So you said we'll first copy all the content and just put it there, and
let's
the browser will actually do a decent job. Is what
the browser is going to do something. Okay, it's going to try and make some sense out of what you're telling it.
Okay.
So put in the first couple of paragraphs over there, and then just double click index.html in your folder. Okay, it's going to open this file in the Chrome browser.
Okay, so I have to open this file in the Chrome browser. That's the only thing I have to do, and the browser automatically does it.
Simple way of going about it would be just open a new tab, press Control O.
Control O is for
then
open.
You can kind of go to where your file is. For instance, index.html.
Right.
And if you open it, the browser is going to do that job for you. Right? It's going to try to make sense out of what you have written in this HTML file.
Got it.
So you'll notice that this doesn't even look remotely close to what the New York Times has.
Right.
Right. So I'm just going to copy in a couple more paragraphs.
And so if I'm coming from like a Java, Python sort of background, there is no compilation here, right? There's no compilation happening. The web browser is just displaying what you're telling it to display, right? There's no compilation.
Exactly. Yeah. So the browser is trying to make sense out of each line that it sees here. Okay. So what you're basically telling the browser is, hey man, go open index.html. Now inside index.html, it's trying to read the stuff that's in here, and it's trying to make sense. You know, what am I supposed to display?
Correct.
So you notice that while we have our content over here, okay, this is the actual content, right? Your best movies, your paragraphs are there, your headings are there. We still haven't told the browser that this piece of text, best movies of 2019, we haven't told the browser that, hey man, this is a heading.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
just treat it like any text.
Okay.
Okay. So the way you do that is by adding a tag. Okay.
Okay.
You do that by adding a simple, I'm just going to surround it with this thing. Okay. Just bear with me as to what this means.
Right.
Okay. So now when the browser is trying to read index.html once again, it's going to the first line and it sees something like this. It sees this h1 tag, okay, and there is something inside the h1 tag.
Right.
Now the browser knows that, hey, you know what, this guy wanted best movies of 2019 to come as a heading.
Right. Right.
Okay, so you're giving your content a lot more structure. For instance, something like this, you could probably put this inside a paragraph.
Okay.
And now the browser knows to display this separately. It's a different
the
way
P
of
tag. So that's a P tag. It's like a paragraph tag. Okay.
Yeah, the P tag is what you would use to tell the browser, hey, whatever comes inside, I want you to treat this like a paragraph.
So a tag is in a way just telling the browser, like what you were talking about, HTML tells structure. So the tag tells you this is a structure, right? So first there's a heading, then there's a paragraph. This is the content of the paragraph.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. For instance, if I wanted to put an image, right? For now, I don't really care about what my image is going to look like how big is it, etc. I just want an image to come on my web page.
Okay.
For that HTML, you have another tag called img.
Right.
Okay. It's very self-explanatory, right? Like
exactly.
img stands for image.
Yeah.
And then you have something like this. You're going to say, make an image object. Okay. I want an image on the page. Now, where does it know what is the source of this image? I just kind of, copied the address of this image.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to say, hey, go to this place on the internet,
right,
fetch the image and put it on my page.
Okay.
That's what this tag is doing here.
Right.
So now if I refresh.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So again, I know it's not exactly like what you see here, but we're getting there. Okay. We're getting there. Other stuff that you can quickly do over here is, let's say you see this nice little line over here, right?
Right.
You could have something like an HR tag. Okay. HR stands for horizontal rule or horizontal line.
Oh, so there's a line over there now.
Yeah. So you see, you already made a line. Now the color of the line, how wide it should be, what is the size of the image. Again, Aneeq, all of that belongs to CSS.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, which I don't even want to touch.
Right.
Until I have my structure in place. Okay. I need to get my content in place. So, I'm just going to cheat a little. I'm just going to copy paste the entire thing. Okay. So let's say we're going to do all this over here. So we have all of our content ready. The problem is, again, I haven't told my browser that, hey, something is a list, something is a heading. I haven't told my browser that. So it's just displaying everything as a paragraph.
Right.
But slowly and steadily, as I start to add more and more structure to this. So for instance, let's make this a heading. Let's make this a second level heading.
Okay.
Right. So see that this is already, it looks a little different.
The heading, right.
This is, again, I'm going to make this a paragraph.
Okay. And so while you are using shortcuts, we could have just like written P before and /P after. That's it.
Yeah. So you do angular bracket P, and wherever you want, so this piece of text, I want it to be a paragraph, right?
Right.
So I'm going to, like just wrap it inside a P tag.
Got it.
So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes and make paragraphs out of everything that's here.
Right.
So that our web page looks a little bit more like this. Okay.
And every time I do this, like you're supposed to save and like you refresh it, because I see that you're refreshing it every time, right?
Yeah. So there are ways to not do this. So if you just save in index.html, it automatically comes here. But I mean,
we're just beginning.
Beginner, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Just make your changes to the file, save it, go back to the tab in the web browser, and then click on refresh.
Refresh.
Okay? So it just reads whatever you had in index.html, it reads it again.
Okay.
Right. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes and quickly mark up.
Right. Yeah. And so meanwhile, everybody who's watching, I hope you're liking the session so far. We are actually, Abhinandan says he's going to actually make this look as close to New York Times as possible. Let's see how close he comes to that. Meanwhile, you guys, if you have any doubts, questions, as always, we're going to take it towards the end of the session. So put them on the chat. Our team is there. We'll reply on the chat as well. And so, just let us know on the chat over there. You can also reach out to us on our email ID, team@edyst.com. Which we'll show it to you at the end of this session. Also, while you're watching, it would be great if you could, give us some comments, feedback on, do you want us to do more sessions like these? Are you more interested in projects? What are the kind of projects that you're interested in? We're going to do many more of these because I'm getting to learn a lot more about HTML. I hope a lot of you are getting to learn about HTML, CSS. Hopefully, we want to get all the way up to just through this series, learn as much as possible about web development. And take full advantage of it. So while Abhinandan's doing that, he's just inserting images. I can see he's just, I think he's continuing to do what he told us he was doing. He's copying the image URL and he's
I'm basically
fitting it here. Yeah.
Now I've made a bunch of new paragraphs.
Okay.
I have my main title of the web page. I have a small subtitle here. I have the first image. I have my horizontal line. Then I have this as a second level heading. Okay, it's not the most important heading, but it's a heading for this section, right? And then you have a bunch of paragraphs over here, and you have your image over here, right? So content-wise, structure-wise, I think we've already done a lot for the first half of the web page.
Right.
You notice that we still don't have the hyperlinks ready.
Yeah.
Okay, for instance, this a New York Times op-ed. So let's just see where that is. Yeah. So over here, for instance, this text is supposed to be a link to something, right? This text over here.
Yeah.
So the way that you add a link is by using another tag called the A tag. Okay. The A stands for anchor, but just know that it's a link. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it this way. So
till now, just as a recap as well, okay, it became a link actually.
Now it looks different, right? So you've told the browser that, hey, this is not just some paragraph text. Okay. If you click on this link, it's actually supposed to take you somewhere else.
Right.
So just like the image has a source, okay, there is some place from which you fetch the image. This link needs to have somewhere that it can take you, right? For instance, if I click on this over here, clicking on it takes me to this new website. Okay, so that's what a link is for. And
okay, so that links to another web page.
Basically. Yeah, it links to another web page. So when you insert an A tag, okay, just like for the IMG tag, we gave it a source, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So each tag will have a name and it can have some extra information. So for an image, we are giving the source of the image. Right. Similarly, for the link, we are telling it where should it link to.
Okay.
Okay. So once I do something like this, I say A tag, I say the href attribute. Href basically means, when I click on this, a New York Times op-ed, where should I go? So now if I refresh and if I open this in a new tab, just like our New York Times web page, it's going to open it in its own tab, right? So now this link is functional, just like you have it over here.
It doesn't look like it, but it works like it.
Exactly. It's a structure, right? So now you've said that, hey, this is not just some random piece of text. It's actually a link. Okay, so the meaning, okay, the reason why that piece of text is on the web page has now changed.
Right.
Now it's a link. A link is different from a heading. It's different from a paragraph.
It's a different element altogether.
It's a different element. It's different from an image. Okay, so each of these elements, I'm going to put it inside my HTML file, and I'm going to mark them up. Okay, that's what HTML stands for, Aneeq. It's the hypertext markup language.
Right.
Okay.
Got it.
Basically, what it says is everything that we've discussed so far. Okay. You have to have some content that HTML is going to give structure to. So this process of giving structure is called marking up, mark up. Okay.
Correct.
So you take a piece of text and you say, hey, I'm going to mark it up as a link.
Right.
You take a piece of text and you say, I'm going to mark it up as a paragraph, right? So just with these few tags, like I think we've talked about 4 or 5 tags by now, and we already have kind of, you know, most of the structural elements in place.
Right. So we've so far seen like the H tag, which is a heading, P tag, which is a paragraph, IMG tag, which is an image. We have seen an href tag, which is an A tag, which is using the href, you can give a link. There's the HR thing that you give a rule as well, a horizontal rule also. Those are some of the tags that you've discussed so far.
Yeah. So just like some of these links on this web page, I'm just, you know, so I just made the Justin Timberlake's character in the social network.
Right.
This piece of text I have now marked up as a link. Okay.
Right.
And what does the link do? It's going to point to something else. So now my Justin Timberlake character, if I click on it, it's going to take me somewhere.
Okay.
Right?
Got it.
Right. So we've done this. The only other markup that I'm going to work with right now is this piece over here.
Right.
So you notice, Aneeq, that again, this is text, but it's the meaning or you know, the structure of this text is not the same as that of a normal paragraph.
Right.
You see that this piece of text, this piece of content is actually a list. It's a list of items.
It's like bullet points in a sense, right?
It's bullet points, right?
Yeah.
Think about what the web page actually is. It's the best movies of 2019, right?
Right.
So it's going to be a list of movies somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what this web page is about, and you know, that's what you know, that's a different markup. Okay.
Correct. It's a different element, right?
It's a different element. Exactly.
We told the browser that you can detect a heading. This is how you can detect a link. This is how you can detect an image. And now you're saying we can tell it how to detect a list as well.
Exactly. So you know what? Just to kind of give you a quick summary of how a list would look like. Okay. So you have an element called the OL element. Okay. The OL stands for an ordered list. So you're saying, hey, you know what? Whatever is going to come inside now is part of a list. Okay, that seems fair.
Yeah.
And for each element in the list, okay, how do you define it? You define it using another tag called li.
Okay.
Okay. So over here, you're saying make a list, and then you're saying, you know what? The first element of the list is Honeyland. Okay. Right. The second element of the list is the souvenir.
Souvenir, right.
Right. So let me just make a couple of these and then I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to make the third element of this list, parasite. So let's see what our browser is trying to make sense of.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Just zoomed in a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
But you see that the browser has already made it a list, right?
Right.
Notice that we don't have this 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dot.
And so if I can guess correctly, if I just move parasite above the souvenir, it will automatically mark it as 2.
Exactly. And that's the best part.
Oh, all right. That was really cool. Okay.
Yeah. So you as an application developer don't have to worry about, you know, what happens if I just change the list elements around. Do I also have to change 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Because it's going to be a pain. Right. If you make a list with like 100 elements and then suddenly, your product manager comes and says, hey, Aneeq, you know what, number 100 isn't working. Just put it up to 50. Now you're kind of screwed, right? You have to change around 50 elements.
Right.
But now that you understand what the browser is doing, right? What this entire process is, the content is Honeyland, Parasite, the souvenir. This is content, right? You are telling the browser that, hey man, take my content, okay, and mark it up, make it, you know, give it the structure of a list. So now the browser is going to do the hard work of saying, okay, now you are element 1, you are element 2, you are element 3, right?
Right. Okay.
Similarly, if you did not want, you know, if you didn't want numbers, but you just wanted bullet points.
These are actual bullet points. Okay. So OL is ordered list. UL would be
unordered list.
Unordered
So
list.
you don't care about order. So
Right.
the browser doesn't care either. It's just going to
see.
display like a little marker here, the circle over here, and you know what? That's a list element for the browser. Right.
Got it.
So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to quickly mark up this these 10
right.
movies.
So you're going to
right
actually
now.
copy paste all of those movies and going to give them list elements, right? That's what you're going to do.
Yeah, I'm going to make list elements out of that.
All right. Meanwhile, guys, while Abhinandan is doing that, I want to know what are your favorite movies. I'm pretty sure none of these movies come in your top 10. If they do, let me know. I haven't seen most of these movies. The cool part is that you can just move things up and down and you'll automatically get these list elements to move up and down. So the other thing I will notice that's going to happen is because he pasted it entirely, even the 1 dot and 2 dot got copy pasted.
Yeah, but you don't need that.
You don't need that. You can actually remove that and just put an li, and automatically the browser takes care of that. You don't have to worry about that, right? Okay. Right. This is cool. This is interesting. And yeah, I mean, so a lot of the people who are on this channel have generally seen our coding videos, or have seen our Python and Java and all those videos. And this is really nothing like that. Honestly, you could have just come in here, especially all my friends from non-computer science background, you know, who've been doing things like you are either a mechanical student, a chemical student, a you know, an EC student, triple E student, doesn't matter. All of this looks pretty simple here. We have not used an if condition anywhere, a while loop, a for loop anywhere. We just seem to be, you know, writing text and telling the browser how it should render the text. And it's no surprise that, you know, the more and more I reach out to companies about asking about what are the kind of jobs they have, they generally say that, you know, we have like UI UX, or rather UI developer, which is an HTML developer, and they don't really have any background required for that, in the sense they don't have a restriction that only CSE students can apply or only EC students can apply. Students from any branch can apply at that point. And you all can see why, because, you know, HTML isn't like, doesn't look like rocket science. It doesn't require a lot of logic over here. All it requires is understanding, remembering the syntax or remembering the tags and the elements. And yeah, we've taken a world famous website and it's going closer and closer to that. Like we have the top 10 list, we have the image, we have the first image as well, we have the heading. We got some links. I'm sure if we give Abhinandan some more time, he'll put all the kind of links for this one. So and this is what in a matter of 20-30 minutes. So I mean, if I am you right now, what I'll do is actually go to a website that I like a lot and try to make that website on my own, just from the tags and stuff that we've discussed so far. So Abhinandan, looks like you made a bunch of bullet points over here.
Yeah, right? So we're getting closer and closer, right?
Right.
So now you see that our list, you know, we've actually ended up making a list of items. There are a little, you know, there are more optimizations that you can do to this, right? But I'm going to, you know, just keep it simple for now. So for instance, I could just wrap this up in a
so you could have tags within tags as well, right? So like,
yeah, okay. You're absolutely right. And that is what makes this special, right? So I'm saying that, for instance, this list element, okay, focus on parasite for now.
Right.
Over here, for instance, what they've said is this entire thing is one element of the list.
Right.
Okay. But different things, even inside this element, mean different, you know, they have a different purpose.
Right.
This is just a paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay? But these two things are not just normal text, they are links.
Right.
The second thing is, you know, they're actually headings in a way. Okay, so list elements also can have headings, right? Because think about what the web page is about. The main purpose of the web page is to show you the top 10 movies.
Right.
So, you know, if I was building this web page, then I would think, you know what, the names of the movies, they're like headings.
They're headings, and then description of the movie is like a paragraph.
Yeah, it's like a paragraph, absolutely. So I could take something like this and I could just make a paragraph out of it, right? So I'm going to close my tag over here.
This would be Honeyland. Okay, yeah. Now the separation is coming as how we see in the actual article as well. Like we have a heading and we have a paragraph. Okay.
And within the heading, Aneeq, again, you can have
a link as well. So we can make the heading a link itself using the anchor tag. Yeah. And okay.
So that's what I'm going to do. One last thing.
Okay, very nice.
You see that, you know, it's a link right now.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not going to go, we'll make more changes to the structure.
Right.
But I think now you have, by now you have a pretty decent idea about what it takes for you to, copy at least the first half of a web page. The first half is the content and the structure, right? So to copy a web page's content, just select it, Control C, Control V, that's your content.
Right. I got the content.
Once you have the content, you're going to mark it up using tags. Okay. So far, so good, right? Pretty simple up until now.
Right.
Now what we are going to do is we are going to add a few styles to this whole thing.
Okay. So this comes, here comes the CSS part, right? So the styles part. Yeah.
Here comes the CSS part. And bear with me. I think people who have some amount of HTML knowledge, okay, or who have done some HTML course before, they would, you know, the first thing that they would have said, my friend said is, why are you even starting with an H1 tag and a P tag? Okay, aren't you supposed to start with like an HTML tag and then you have to have a body tag? Okay, and the answer is yes, you're supposed to do all of that. But for a quick demo, okay, these all tags, right? HTML, body, and all, they are different ways of marking up your content. Okay, and once I finish my web page, okay, ideally I also will wrap it inside a different set of tags. You know, I would have my HTML, my head, and my body. The beauty about the browser, okay, and that's what I keep coming back to, Aneeq. To become a good web developer, you have to start thinking like the browser.
Thinking like the browser. Okay.
The beauty about the browser is, even if you omit a few tags, okay, even if you omit a little bit of structure, the browser is smart enough to kind of guess what it is that you're doing. Okay. So because we've opened up an HTML file and there is some HTML code inside here, the browser understands that, you know what, even though I don't see the HTML tag, this guy is making HTML.
Right.
Okay. So the browser is smart enough that way. And the reason I didn't go into detail about those things is that, you know, I wanted to be able to show you that using a set of 4 or 5 tags, you can get, you know, all of your content kind of in place. You can get the structure in place.
Right.
So I'm going to start adding some CSS now. Okay. And the way that you add CSS to your website, there are multiple ways of doing it. Remember that we said that we are going to keep everything to one file.
Right.
As a beginner, when you're starting out, this is a good way of doing it. Okay. Because you don't have to worry about 20 different files in your head. In actual companies, you will use multiple files. There are 10 different steps that you have to go through. Right. But that's when you have some experience.
But we're just beginning right now, and we got our structure right for HTML, and we want to now figure out how to put the styles, and we're going to continue in the same file itself.
Exactly. So let's just quickly see what it is that we want to style. So the first thing that we would want is, you know, the size of the text, right? For instance, their paragraphs, the font sizes look a little bigger than ours. Ours are pretty tiny. The second thing is the actual font that they are using. Okay.
Right.
The font itself, the style of the text looks a little different from what we have.
Yeah.
So we'll take a look at that. The other things that, I mean, I don't know if you can see this, but the colors of the heading and the paragraphs is not exactly black.
Yeah, they're a bit different than black.
This comes with a bit of experience.
Yeah.
You know, it's not exactly the same black text that you see here.
Right.
Slight changes in color, and that is what, you know, makes a web page so beautiful to look at. Okay, when you play around with colors. So let's start off by adding, you know, just making our styles look decent, making the web page look a little decent.
So is it safe to say that right now the browser is just relying on its default styles, right?
Oh yeah. So I told you, right? The browser, is smart enough to try to assume or try to make some decisions for you.
Right.
So since you haven't told the browser anything, all you've told the browser is, hey, this is a heading, but you haven't told it what a heading should look like. Okay. And if you don't tell the browser that, it shouldn't make a difference, right? Like visually it should have stayed the same.
Correct.
But what the browser does is it already has some CSS, as you said.
Right.
Okay, it's already using its own CSS.
Okay.
Just so that if I'm a lazy web developer and I don't want to put styles, I will still have like a decent web page. Okay, this is a pretty functional web page. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay,
I can read everything and
you can read
there.
everything.
Right.
Yeah. So now what we're going to do is we're going to tell the browser, hey, I am specifying my own styles. Okay?
Right.
I will tell you what my heading should look like, what my paragraph should look like, etc. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the font size a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to say for every paragraph.
Okay.
So this is my way of selecting what I want to change or what I want to style.
Right.
I'm saying I want to take, if you see a paragraph,
right.
Okay, I want you to change the font size to say, let's keep it at 20 pixels. Okay.
Okay.
So now you see that,
the
size has changed.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But
only for the paragraphs, not for the headings.
Only for the paragraph.
Right.
I could also say that, you know what, I don't want black. Okay. I want a slightly different version of black.
And
okay.
So you put some color code over there.
Yeah, I put a color code over there. And
okay.
If you're beginning and you've never written HTML, CSS before, I don't expect you to understand any of this. Okay. The thing I want you to understand or pay attention to is how you go about writing these rules.
Correct. Okay? Yeah.
What does the browser understand out of it? So when the browser is going to read my index.html now, it's going to find this style block, right? This is a style tag. And inside the style tag, I put in rules. So now the browser knows that whenever it sees a paragraph, this element over here.
It's supposed to apply these styles on that paragraph.
It's supposed to apply these rules. Okay.
Right. Okay.
So it's when it draws all of this on the web page, it's going to say, hey, you know what? The developer said font size should be 20 pixels.
20 pixels. Yeah.
And 20 pixels is like one way of measuring size. You can have centimeters, inches that you have in real life. On a web browser, you deal with pixels.
Right.
Okay. Similarly, this is a way of defining a color. Okay. Simple things like you could just say color red. Okay. And
so you need not always use codes. So you could just like type in a color.
I mean, the more you learn about HTML, you will realize how beginner friendly it is. Like a lot of these things are common sense. You don't have to know a lot of programming to understand any of this.
Right.
Because if I read this like English, I know that, hey, you're saying the web page should have a style where all the paragraphs should have a font size of some size and the colors should be red, right? It should be a red color paragraph. So I can do stuff like that. I'm just going to quickly say that,
So if I can get this right, you're now trying to assign a style to the H1 tags.
Yeah, the H1 is my main heading. Okay.
Yes.
This best movies of what else? So I'm going to say my font size is 44 pixels.
And if I remember, you put H2 for something else. So this will not affect the H2. It will only affect the H1.
Exactly. So all it's going to look for is an H1 tag.
Right.
Okay. Wherever you find this selector. So you'll notice that this piece of text over here, okay, your P, your H1, these are ways of telling the browser what elements to select.
Correct.
Okay, to which it will apply these styles. They don't have to be as simple as this. They can actually get really complex.
Right.
You can say something like, oh, give me the paragraph that is inside a heading, which is inside this section. You can do a lot of magic with CSS. But again, Aneeq, I keep repeating this. The beauty about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, learning front-end development is how beginner-friendly it is. How far you can go with very simple things,
Yeah.
So H1, you can just say, my font size is this. If I want a slightly different font, so, the style of the font, I could say something like, I could say something like Times New Roman.
Yeah. I think all of our students do their project descriptions in Times New Roman. Their project reports are all in Times New Roman.
Yeah. So what you'll have over here is, if you give different fonts, depending on whether they are present in your system or not,
the H1 keeps changing based on that.
Yeah, it's going to keep changing. So for instance, I don't have the Times New Roman font, but most of our students who are on Windows,
they will have
it.
Okay.
So you can add some default fonts. Okay, you can make it look different.
Right.
For instance, there's something called as monospace. Okay, and monospace makes it look like
code basically. Yeah.
Exactly. You would have seen a lot of this on Edyst.com, right? Anytime that you're trying to do a
whenever you're writing code on Edyst, it's generally, or whenever you see code on Edyst, it's generally monospace.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm just going to give my H2 elements another font size. Right. And how I know what the sizes are, okay? A lot of this is kind of guesswork. All right. For instance, you can see here, and you can try and compare, are my font sizes the same or not.
Right.
The other way that you do it is actually by asking the browser. Okay, so if I'm doing New York Times, I can right click and go to inspect.
And this is there in all browsers, right? It's not something that you're running a special version of Chrome or anything. No.
Yeah. So you right click on this and you click on inspect.
Right.
And then you'll notice that it's going to end up selecting this over here. So I'm not sure if you can see this. It's a little small.
Yeah, if you can just zoom in a bit. Yeah. And,
one second, I'm just gonna have to make this a little.
If you can increase the console size, probably. Yeah, actually, this is good.
So keep it to the right. So you see this over here, right? This
right.
H2.
So it says H2. Yeah.
And then it has a bunch of other stuff like class and ID.
Right. Yeah.
Let's not worry about that for now. You see that, I mean, structurally it's the same as us, right? We also have an H2 called Films Worth Arguing About. Right. And their H2, I can kind of go to the styles over here and I can search for font size just to see what they are using. Okay, so they're using something called as REM.
Right.
Right. Okay. Again, these are all different ways of specifying size.
And we could just input the same thing and it would give out the same sort of result.
Exactly. So I could make this an H1 just as easily, right? And then you would see that this and this now have the same size.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So we've got that covered. One thing that you would see is our links.
Links have to be blue in color, actually.
Yeah, the links have to be blue in color, right?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're just going to pick an anchor tag.
Anchor tag, correct. Yeah.
And then we're going to say that, hey, you know what? Give me a blue color. Okay, or suppose I say, give me a violet color. In that case, it's going to look like this.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, Aneeq, we want to pay attention to details. Okay, so we want to design it exactly like how it is on the web page. So I'm going to inspect this. I see that this A element has been selected, and I'm going to search for what color it has.
Right.
Okay, so you can see
and there's a color code over there.
Yeah. So I'm just going to copy that color code. I'm just going to copy that color code here. And so now you see that it's exactly the same color.
Yes.
Right? So we're getting closer and closer in terms of colors, in terms of,
the font, like the sizes and the colors. Yeah.
Exactly. So one thing that you'll notice that we are not doing so well, okay, that the New York Times website is doing so well, is that they've left some space on the left and right.
Correct. It's making it easier to read when they like leave spaces on the right and left side, right? So
exactly.
But our thing is going from one end to the other end, like it's taking the entire space.
Absolutely right. So one way of doing that is, you can just select your body element, okay? And body is the main tag, okay?
Remember how the H1 also get included in the body?
So all of these things that we've included here,
right?
Okay. Ideally, we would have started off with the entire HTML, the HTML boilerplate. So this is how it would have looked like, and all of this text
would have been inside body. Okay. And then there is this other stuff that this is the other syntax. It's kind of like if you're doing C++ or Java, where you write public class main, or you write your hash include
Yeah.
stdio.
So for now, we know that the browser is already going to make a body tag for us.
Right.
Okay. So on our own page, if you go and inspect,
Yeah. Oh,
okay,
there's
you'll
already
see
a body
that,
tag.
yeah, there's already an HTML, there's already a head, there's already a body. And inside that, you have all of your H1 and P tags and image tags and
Right.
stuff,
Okay.
right? So the browser already made those nice decisions for us.
So one confusion that I think many students will have is that head tag is different from this heading H1 tag, right? That's not the same thing.
Yeah. The head tag is a whole different thing.
It's a different thing altogether. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we could go into what it means and all, but it's going to sidetrack us.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Let's leave that for now. We'll just dive
let's
directly
leave
into
that
body
for
tag. Yeah.
So one thing that I'm going to do here, Aneeq, is whenever you see my images here, right? My image is overflowing. Like I don't want it to, be that big.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay? So even before I style my body tag, one thing I could do is I could tell that my image should have a width of 100%. Okay, which means my image is now going to fit on my screen.
Oh, so before it was going more than 100%. Actually.
Exactly, it was going to what its original size is. Like the person who created that image that is on this link, that will have a size of its own, right?
Right.
But I'm saying, hey, I don't want you to care about what size you originally are.
Right.
Depending on the size of the browser, I want you to be 100% of the browser width.
Okay.
And if I increase it, you see that my image increases
with the browser.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is pretty nifty. Okay. Right. Now my web page looks even better. Right. My images are all falling in line. You notice that the same thing has happened here, even though I didn't.
Right. Yeah, because it's also the image tag, right? So.
Yeah. So it's selecting everything that satisfies this condition.
Right.
Okay. The IMG tag.
Right.
Okay? So any IMG tag that the browser renders, it's going to make it look like this.
Right.
So I'm going to give it a width. The other thing that I'm going to do is I notice that there are, there's a fair bit of padding over here.
Okay. When you say padding, is the stuff
space.
that's left on the side?
Yeah. There's some space over here, right? There are margins over here.
Okay.
So there are margins over here, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is all of these elements that I see over here,
which are inside the body, right?
Yeah, which are inside the body.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to put them inside another tag.
Okay.
Another HTML tag called section.
Okay. We'll call it a section. Okay.
Yeah. I could also use something called as a div.
Okay.
Okay. We'll get to what a div is, but for now, I think section is much easier to understand.
Right.
Section is basically saying that, hey, whatever is inside this belongs to one section.
One section.
Okay. This thing is, logically, it's in the same group.
It's not going to change much in terms of like the section itself won't change the structure as such. It's just for us to say that, hey, couple all of these things into one section.
Right? Exactly. So you are not telling the browser how the section will look. Okay. Right. You're just saying that this H1 and this P and this image tag, I just formatted it now.
Right. Or rather, the browser has no default way to format a section as such. Right.
Yeah. The browser doesn't have any way of. So section is one of those tags that I use to group other tags, other content. Okay. So if I look at my web page logically, I know that this is one group.
Section. Yeah.
Okay. It's an introduction.
Right.
So this is the introductory section.
Right.
This section is the section about films worth arguing about.
Right.
This could be a section that that
like the list. It's like the top 10 list. Yeah.
Yeah. So I could have a variety of sections on my page. So I'm just going to separate these guys out. So you would depending on your web page, you would keep things in different sections. Just for simplicity, I'm going to keep all of my elements that I've added so far
into one section.
Yeah, I'm going to put all of them into one section. Okay.
But generally speaking, we would like to separate out different things that need to be styled differently.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the browser doesn't care because the browser is not going to style it differently for you. The browser doesn't understand what images and what text go together, right?
Right. Correct.
The browser has no sense of that.
Yeah.
But when you tell the browser that, hey, these 5 things are grouped together, the beauty is now you can make decisions about the group itself.
The entire
I
section.
can say that any group, any section group that you find on the web page, okay, I want you to give it a width of 600 pixels, okay, or rather I'm going to say give it a maximum width of 600 pixels.
Okay.
So the same way that I said, hey, image, I'm going to give it a width of 100%. This is another way of, this is another rule.
So what's the difference between a width and a max width here?
So you don't have to get into that right now. You can get away with just saying width, okay, and it works just the same.
All right. Okay.
Max width is, I mean, it's intuitive to understand. Basically what it says is if the size of the window becomes much smaller, right?
Okay. Then
your text is going to flow.
Okay. Okay.
So you're saying that you try to, you know, go as wide as the screen is,
but don't go further than 600
that you can go
pixels.
is 600 pixels.
Okay, so the maximum I've said. So whereas with 100% means no matter how much my thing keeps increasing, you have to take the entire width always.
Yeah. For instance, if I say now that the section has to have a width of 600 pixels,
right?
If I bring the browser window much smaller, you'll see that I now get a scroll bar. Right?
Because it's always keeping it at 600 pixels.
Yeah, it's taking anything that is inside section, and it's you know the entire section group is going to get a width of 600 pixels.
Okay.
So
if I put a max width,
max width basically just makes it, you know, a little more fluid. Okay, so if I'm going to change my my web browser size, okay, especially if I see it on mobile and stuff, right? Because on mobile devices, this is the width that you would have, or much smaller width than this actually.
Right. Got it.
So, yeah, it's a different rule, Aneeq. I just wanted to show that, you know, even a simple concept like width, there are multiple ways of expressing that. Okay, you can say what is the maximum width.
And the first one you'd put a percentage, and the second one you've given a pixel value. You can also give an REM, which was given earlier probably.
Yeah,
you could,
that was on the New York Times webpage.
Yeah, and you could probably do a min width also, I'm guessing. Like, so these are all this bunch of flexibilities that you know, CSS and HTML give us, right?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of rules. There are about 350 rules, if I'm not wrong, in the latest CSS spec. Right. But as a web developer, as a professional web developer for the last 3 years, Aneeq, I have not used more than 50 of them. You'll be amazed as to how far you can go with just a basic, you know, just some margins, some widths, colors, font sizes. Those are pretty much all that you need. The rest of the rules are for really advanced use cases. Don't really work with that a lot. So yeah, so you only have to work with 50 of them, out of which a lot of them are common sense. Like you don't have to, there's no concept for what a width is. It's just
or what a color is or a font size. It's pretty much standard. You can understand it. Yeah.
So now what I'm going to say is, you notice that they have equal width on both sides, right?
Yeah.
Even if I like stretch it apart, so you notice that this somehow comes in the center.
Yeah, so it was always centered. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So one way I could go about doing this is I could say that for this section, okay, which is basically my entire group over here,
right?
I want to give it some margin on the left. Okay, margin basically says this is the spacing that I want to give on the left.
Okay, from the left side. Okay.
Yeah. So you could give it 50 pixels and it would be slightly more. But again, this is different from this. Okay.
Right.
So the way that people generally do it is by giving automatic margins. And again, I don't expect you to understand what exactly is happening right now.
Okay.
Especially with the auto part. Okay. But common sense, what you can think of is, this is a section. This has to have a maximum width of 600 pixels. So it's already taking up 600 pixels. And then you're saying that whatever space is left, okay, which is, you know, if I were to make this a little bigger,
then automatically
whatever space is left, just divide it equally between the left and the right margins.
Okay.
So you'll notice that we're already, you know, almost at parity with.
Exactly. And so just to extend, although we won't do it, I'm guessing then if there's a left, right, there has to be like a top, bottom also.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Right. So there's a margin top, there's a margin bottom. Okay. There are other ways of increasing, of adding width, okay, of adding spacing. There's padding, PADDING.
Okay.
That's another way of doing it. So yeah, so there are a bunch of ways, but again, what you should take away from all of this is just how easy it was to
Exactly.
kind of get
Yeah.
it to look like this, right?
Right.
Simple thing like if I just made a line height, okay. For instance, you'll notice that our lines are pretty close together,
Right.
whereas here they have some spacing
Some
between
spacing.
the
Yeah.
lines themselves. So if I were to make it like 28 pixels or something, this is another property called
Wow.
line height.
Okay.
And now you see we're close. We're much
Right.
closer to
Right.
how this web page looks like, right?
Yes.
What we haven't done so well so far is used the exact fonts that New York
Yes.
Times is using.
Right.
So, if we were to use those fonts, then we could make our web page look a lot more like
Almost identical.
like what
Yeah.
the New York Times has. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm going to kind of wrap up the demo here. The
Sure.
idea was to show you that in, I don't know, like probably it's been like a 30-45 minute walkthrough.
Exactly.
And
Right.
we started from the absolute basics, Aneeq.
We just copy pasted the text, right?
We just copy pasted the text.
And slowly but slowly we started telling the browser what we're supposed to do. And so if I could recap on behalf of the students, right, because I've just been seeing what you're doing here. So guys, if you can actually, you can rewind and check what we've done here. What Abhinandan did was he actually took up all of the text, he copy pasted it. The first thing he did was he got the H1 tags, told what's the heading, then he demarcated what's the paragraph. So that sort of gave like a little bit of distinction over there. Then slowly he started going for the small elements like the links that were there, the images that we got. Then he gave each bullet point. He showed us how you can use an ordered list, an unordered list, and each bullet point had a certain style. And then in that bullet point, we saw how you can nest a tag and how you can have a P tag over there and an H2 tag that will give us a difference. And so that's what he's continuing to do as well. And you can see that the browser is picking this up. And the other thing then what he did was he said, we don't need to style each element separately, like go to each element and say, you know what, make parasite bold, make souvenir bold. He just applied a rule to that particular element. So to paragraphs, he applied a rule. To the list elements, he applied we didn't apply a rule to the list elements, right? Actually,
no,
we applied it directly to the H2, right? So we applied it directly to the H2. And so we got it there. We applied a rule to the links to make them violet in color, to make them then in that exact blue color that New York Times has. We actually increased the line heights. We saw what's margin. So within like 30-40 minutes, you come so close to what New York Times makes. I highly suggest that you open up your favorite website. It could be Instagram, right? I know a lot of people spend time on Instagram. A lot of you spend time on Edyst. If you want, you can just go and mark up edyst.com, right? And just see how that markup works. And so if you can come back to like the initial discussion that Abhinandan and I were having, that what you see is HTML CSS is like the visual language of the web platform, of the entire website of the internet. And if you know how to use that, you're automatically employable. Okay, you will get companies who just want them to create the web pages for you to create web pages for them. You're directly employable by them. You need not have be from a CSE background. You can be from any background as long as you know HTML, CSS. Typically engineering background, but you don't need to be specifically from CSE background. And if you are someone who's from a computer science background who wants to start getting into the most high demand field of web development, the starting blocks is HTML. You can't start without going towards HTML and CSS. So that's what we've seen so far. And like the thing that Abhinandan was doing right now also was he was just continuously adding P tags and href anchor tags, and automatically the styles would get applied because he's already defined the CSS over there. So the browser is picking up over here. Yes, so we defined the CSS at the top. So yeah, I mean, pretty cool. We took something like New York Times, we cloned the entire thing, and so that was really nice. And I'm sure like if we give you even more time, you're gonna like go right at it and get the exact styles over there. So I think now you're adding styles for the color of the horizontal rule, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. Okay.
So Aneeq, a lot of web development, right? It's about working with the finer details.
Right.
Okay. Paying extreme attention to the fact that so I might not be able to see that the difference between black and slightly black.
Right.
Okay. but the user will be able to tell.
Exactly.
Okay, for instance, we know that still our website over here, while it's similar to what this guy looks like, it's not the same, right? And the reason it's not the same is because we still haven't touched upon a few other things. For instance, we still don't have the same exact font for things like films worth talking about. Okay, so ours looks a lot fatter, right? Theirs is much thinner. So you have to use the right fonts. You have to make sure that the colors are exactly the same. You've got to make sure that, for instance, your figure has a caption, right? This image has a caption. So, you know, we still haven't added this.
Correct,
this has to have a separate font size, a separate color.
Yeah.
So a lot of attention to detail, right? Which is why it's, again, even though there are so many courses out there, there are so many, like, you know, web developers in general, there are a lot of web developers. The reason why you still can make a lot of money as a web developer is because there are not a lot of good ones out there. Okay. And when I say good, I mean people don't look at the finer details. They don't obsess about small things like, hey, what is the spacing between these two? This is not the same as, you know, what my designer gave me. Okay, the designer said give only this much space. I've ended up putting this much. Okay, so you've got to be very, very precise. Okay, you'll see that there's not a lot of programming knowledge that you need. As you absolutely correctly said a few minutes ago, Aneeq, there's no while loops, there's no if conditions.
Yeah.
You know, you're just taking content, you're marking it up, and then you're applying some styles to it. But even in such a simple web page, okay, to make it look exactly like this one, you've got to obsess over, you know, what is the the spacing over here and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun to do, and it's what people should spend a lot of time on. Okay, find 15-20 websites. Just, you know, you saw what we did there, right? So we right-clicked,
we inspected, we were trying to see what colors they are using, and, you know, we try to get that,
what tags they are using.
Right.
For instance, my thing would be to go to the Edyst website itself. Okay, so I'm on the Web Master Bootcamp course page, and you can come here and you can inspect stuff. You can see what choices we took. Do we have a heading? Do we have a section? The colors that we took. Yeah. So good way to learn how to be a web developer is you don't have to step out of your browser. That's all I'm saying. Your browser is your best friend.
Love your browser and keep asking it the right questions. So, Abhinandan, as we're just wrapping it up, we'll just go back. Can you just open up the flowchart about the whole development and what are the different levels? So right now we had just seen about the different, so we were talking about front end, and you were talking about just one specific thing, right? Which is the technologies, the HTML, the CSS. We didn't even go into JavaScript at all, right?
Yeah.
If you could tell me, like, very quickly, if I want to become a full stack developer today, so I mean, this is just the front end part that you've said, but if I want to become a full on a full stack developer, what are the different parts? And you know, just like overall, because I think we'll do more sessions where we go like dive deeper into it.
Right. So I'm just going to tell you what I'm looking at right now. So you see this roadmap here.
Right.
I'll link to where I got this roadmap from. Okay. But that roadmap is pretty complex. Okay. So we're just going to focus on what I think is most important for a beginner to get started. Right. If you want to be a web full stack developer, you have to have skills in the front end and you have to have skills on the back end.
Okay.
Right. Front end we just saw is HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Back end we haven't spoken about so much, but I'll get to that in a bit. But more importantly, Aneeq, there are some skills that you will need regardless of whether you're a front-end engineer or a back-end engineer. Any web developer needs this, okay? You need to know about the software called as Git.
Okay.
It manages your entire project. Okay,
right.
So your entire website and the web application has thousands of files. Okay, so you're making changes to it. Suppose, for instance, at Edyst, I work with a team of 4 or 5 other developers, right? So we're all working on the same project. So this software is the one that helps keep all of those changes in one place.
Right, so that your change doesn't override my change, somebody's changes don't come and, you know, clash with our changes. We are all able to develop all these files together.
Absolutely. And this is regardless of whether you're on front end or back end or wherever.
Right.
Whenever you're doing software development, you need to have a project management version control tool. Git is that. Okay,
Is
so
this
we'll
the
take
same Git that is in GitHub? That's the same Git, right? That we use
You're
in GitHub.
absolutely right. So GitHub is the website on which you can host your Git repositories.
Okay.
Don't worry about the technicalities of it, but you're absolutely right. GitHub.com and the software behind it, which is Git. Okay, you need to be familiar with it if you want to be a web developer. Okay,
Yeah.
You need to have terminal usage, basic terminal usage. For instance, are you able to see my screen right now?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Yeah. So you can see this black rectangle over here, right?
Mm-hmm. This is the terminal, right? And you're typing in commands.
This is the terminal.
Yes.
So this is another piece of software that you need to have some familiarity with. Okay?
And I think most of our students use it to compile code today. So they do like Java C and they compile a code, or they do Python and they execute a code. They do that on the terminal usually.
Absolutely. So you're absolutely right, Aneeq. People if you've touched those things, then you're already, you've used a terminal before, you've used a command line before. But for people who haven't seen any of this, nothing to worry about. It's literally a 1 or 2 day crash course.
Right.
You just need to be aware of a few commands, basic terminal usage. It says data structures and algorithms, but you only kind of need that when you want to become a really, really good backend developer. Okay. To start out, I would say that until you come to backend, you don't need to worry about data structures and algorithms. Okay, but this is something that is generally very, very helpful. And finally, GitHub. Okay, you have to be a little familiar with GitHub. That's the place where you're going to store all of your code. So this is where you start off, right? You need some knowledge of Git and you need knowledge of Linux and the command line. And then you have to choose a path. Okay, as I've said before, Aneeq, becoming a good full stack developer cannot happen in 15 days. It absolutely cannot happen in 15 days. The amount of skill and the amount of exercise and the amount of practice you need just to become a decent front-end engineer, okay, is in the order of months just to become a beginner front-end engineer.
Right.
But still, since you've asked me what it would take, I would say that for this call, for this webinar, since we focus so much about the front end, let's just take a look at the requirements to become a front-end engineer in detail. We'll probably pick up on backend and DevOps a little bit later. Right. So for the front end, this is a mental map. Okay, this is how you want to learn these things. So the first thing you need to be somewhat aware of is the internet itself. Okay, you use it to browse the websites, but you need to know a few concepts behind it, like how does the internet work? When I type in google.com,
what happens, right?
Yeah, what exactly happens between me typing this, pressing enter, and this thing showing up on the browser? You don't have to go into any sort of detail, but you have to know the basics, right? You have to know browsers and how they work. Then you need to know DNS and how it works, and what is a domain name. Okay, again, these may seem fancy right now. Literally 2 paragraphs of explanation, 1 or 2 images, and you'll understand enough to be able to do the rest of the stuff. Right?
And so it looks like the meat of the matter, the major matter of becoming a front end is actually HTML, CSS, JavaScript. The other is more or less like theoretical knowledge of that, but the actual practical knowledge comes from HTML, CSS, JavaScript.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the browser, right? It doesn't understand anything else. All it understands is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So it doesn't matter whether you're doing React or Angular or Bootstrap or whatever. At the end of the day, it's all HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Right.
So the important thing after that, after you have some theoretical knowledge about how the internet works, is to focus on HTML.
Correct.
Okay? You have to learn what the basics are. You have to learn how to write semantic HTML, which is a way of saying, writing structured HTML.
Okay.
Then using HTML, you build a lot of forms. For instance, Aneeq, whenever you sign up on the Edyst platform, I'm sure a form pops up, right? Where you put in your names and details. Yeah, HTML is very, very good at that. So you can build a really complex form in HTML using very, very few tags. And, other things like making tables, just giving structure in general, right? That's the purpose of HTML. That's what you need to learn. Then you go on to CSS.
All right.
CSS, most of the times is, you can just divide it into 3 parts. The first part is superficial properties, okay, visual properties like color, sizes, background color, is there a background image, the border size, border radius. So there are a bunch of these visual properties, which are the basics of CSS. Then you have your spacing properties like margin, padding, width. Okay, they basically tell you how wide or how tall your content can be. Okay. The second most important part of learning CSS is learning how to make layouts. You'll come to that later, what layouts are, but it's basically like, if for instance on Instagram.com, we saw the 3x3 grid, right?
Yeah, the 3x3 grid. So
yeah,
that CSS will tell you, and that's like a layout that tells us how those squares come about.
Exactly. And on other websites, you would have seen Facebook, for instance, has a 3-column layout.
Right.
On the left, you have your groups and all. In the middle, you have your newsfeed, and on the right, you have your chat bar. Right. So CSS is also responsible for arranging things. It's not just making them pretty. It's actually arranging them. What comes on top of where, and what comes after who. And once you've kind of done that, and these are some technologies that you need to be aware of: Flexbox, CSS Grid, positioning and display, etc. Once you're done with that, you can come to JavaScript. Okay. And JavaScript is a programming language. So just like Python, you have to learn some syntax, how to declare a variable, how to write an if condition, while condition. Again, Aneeq, remember, this only comes at the point where your entire UI is already built.
And we want some logic on the web page.
Yeah, so, it's simple stuff like, if I click on the button, can I just make it a different color? Or if I click on something, can I get a loading indicator? Okay, simple stuff like that is all we want to be concerned with. For that, you just need to learn some basic constructs. You need to learn this thing called DOM manipulation. Don't worry about what that is. Fetch API and ES6. Okay, so these other three. I'm not going to go into any sort of detail right now. You can go very, very far just by learning these two, the basic syntax of JavaScript and some DOM manipulation. You'll be able to do, I think, about 80% of what that Instagram web page does.
Right.
And there are a few advanced concepts. You don't need to really, really know them. It's like when you're preparing for these big product companies and big services companies, you know that when they ask you SQL, they don't really need you to understand everything in detail. There's some questions that you need to have practice, and then there are some MCQ sort of questions, right? One of the most irritating questions that I know Java recruiters ask is, can Java attain 100% abstraction?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of our Java students will have seen such questions. So these are questions that you don't really code for. You never ever in your code come across, but these are some things you need to know from an interview perspective.
It's mostly theoretical. Okay, it's all right as a beginner if you don't really understand what's happening, because you don't really need to be able to build a fun website.
Yeah.
Okay, and all of these things are slightly advanced. They come with experience. They come with age. But just with HTML, CSS, and basic JavaScript, if you build, Aneeq, I think the only way to do any of this, to become a full stack web developer is to build projects. I don't think watching videos or doing reading material will get anybody far. You need to have, wherever you're learning from, you need to have places where you see what you're supposed to build, and then there should be a way to build it. It needs a lot of practice, Aneeq. You have to practice on making hundreds of websites.
And so if our students are serious right now, you should all take that to your heart and say that the New York Times thing that we did today, you should all actually open it up and try to do that thing yourself, right? And you'll see it's just about 3 or 4 hours of effort, like half a day, but you'll see you learn so much by yourself. Obviously, keep your notebook on your side and try to take notes, but without actually implementing all of these, you will know it, but you will not actually know it. So I like to always use the same example that, you can watch 100 people swimming. Until you get into the swimming pool, you will never actually learn to swim, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what's going to happen to you. So, just stop watching, watch the videos to learn, but then actually go ahead and do things also, right? And so you've touched upon projects, brings me back to our Web Master Bootcamp, right? So we've launched this course, we are talking about this, and can you just like guide us quickly through like what are the technologies we're covering here? So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, obviously that's in the front end, right?
Yeah.
So you can just quickly, like, I see there are 3 stages. If you can just quickly guide us to what's
Yeah.
happening in each
So the
stage.
bootcamp is to help you become a full stack developer
Right.
by giving you a lot of experience on the front end
Right.
and enough experience on the back end to help you build web applications from scratch.
Okay.
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 So we've divided it into 3 phases, Aneeq. The first phase is called liftoff. That's
Right.
where we learn Linux and Git. If you remember, that's what we started off with. Those are the fundamental concepts that you need to know as a web developer. No matter
I'm so
what.
glad we're doing Linux because every company asks Linux, every company develops on Linux. So, if you're stuck on developing on Windows, you're really behind. If you really need to be on Linux, I'm so glad that Linux is there. Yeah.
And I mean, it's what modern companies are doing.
Yes.
This is an enterprise. The hottest startups in the world right now, Aneeq. You take the big ones that are in America. You take the ones that are in India. They're all mostly developing on a Linux stack.
Right.
Okay. They're all building web applications. It's a very, very exciting time, and learning Linux and Git is going to give you a huge advantage over people.
Yeah.
In the same phase, Aneeq, after we learn the basics, we're going to focus a lot on building beautiful and functional web pages using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Right.
This is a very, very project-heavy course in the sense that, we're not about, it's not just a bunch of videos. We're actually going to end up making projects like these. So you can see that this is a Zomato clone.
Okay.
This is
so we'll actually make a Zomato restaurant review system sort of a website.
Yeah. The entire point of going through the HTML, CSS course, Aneeq, is we learn to build these things step by step.
Okay.
So in one exercise, we will learn how to just, style a paragraph, how to add a link to a paragraph, how to make that link a different color, how to add an image.
And that eventually builds up to something like a Zomato or something like a Medium.
Into much bigger projects.
Wow.
So we actually have 3 divisions. We have exercises, we have mini projects, and then we have actual projects. So for instance, we would have something like a Sudoku solver. Okay. Right. This is again from the New York Times. Sorry, this is from Sudoku.com. Yeah. One of the world's most visited pages, one of the world's most played games. So we'll see how we can build a beautiful Sudoku game using mostly HTML, CSS, and just a little sprinkle, just a little dash of JavaScript.
Okay.
We'll see how to build the Instagram page, and I'm not joking, Aneeq. This is not a screenshot from Instagram. This is a screenshot from the
actual
page
course
that we're going to build.
So this is, if I sign up for this course, or if a student signs up for this course,
yeah,
every screenshot that we are seeing right now is something that they will end up building, and it's not something that has been taken off of Instagram or off of some resume.com or off of Medium. We have actually built those things.
Yeah. And that's where, Aneeq, I think you'll end up learning. Because without practice on real websites, it's very simple to say, H1 is heading, P is paragraph. But unless you build 100 different websites, you will not know what is a heading, when to make it a heading, how many ways can I make it a heading, right? So we need a lot of practice there. So once we develop our front-end portfolio with about 5 to 10 proper full-fledged projects, we're going to come over to the back-end now. Right. So once we already have these skills.
First phase is mainly on the front end. Then the
second phase is mainly on the back end. We're going to take a quick tour of Python. We're going to write a web server, a web application backend in Flask, which is a Python framework. We're going to take a look at databases as well, because I told you, right, that's what a backend would look like.
Yes.
So in Flask, Python, and this SQL, in our database, we will take care of adding users, deciding whether you can log in or not.
Okay, so all of the backend logic is going to be done in this thing.
Uploading recipes, uploading images, etc. We're going to handle all of that here. And while we are developing, while we are getting our feet wet with the backend, the purpose again, Aneeq, is to make full stack projects. So we will, by the end of the course, end up making 3 full stack projects. We're going to make a restaurant review app like Zomato. So everything from how it looks, it'll have different web pages. It'll have a page for orders. It'll have a page for sign-ups. It'll have a page, the home page, etc. Right? You can find restaurants, etc. To designing the backend, okay, like storing users, storing restaurants, storing reviews.
Right.
So we're going to build an application like that. We're going to build something like Stack Overflow. I think 90%
everybody's heard of Stack Overflow.
Yeah,
wow,
90% of my life as a programmer, I think, has been
on Stack Overflow.
Yeah, Stack Overflow. So yeah, so it'll be fun to build that. And you'll notice that if you build a Zomato, you can build a Swiggy.
Right.
You can build an Uber Eats. If you build a Stack Overflow, you can build a Discourse. You can build any discussion forum. If you build an Instagram, you can build a Pinterest. You can build any photo sharing website, right? So I think people can be really can look forward to building web applications that have a lot of relevance, right?
Right.
And at the end of all of this, Aneeq, you're as a web developer, unless your application is on the internet, okay, I don't count you as a web developer, right? So I don't.
So we'll actually put all our projects online.
Absolutely. And what this means is you don't have to open up files from your local machine to be able to see your application. You can actually go to things like abhinandan.something.com, or in your case, you would make something like aneeq.something.com, and that is where your application would be.
Brilliant.
So you can actually have, you can look forward to building these three things, deploying it to AWS. And a lot of people have asked for this, which is why, as a bonus, we're going to teach you to rewrite your front ends in React.js.
Okay.
What you have to, the only thing I'm going to tell people is, if your first question is, oh, that's okay, I don't want to learn HTML, CSS, I just want to learn React, you're looking at it the wrong way. Okay, the browser doesn't understand React. The browser doesn't care about React. Okay, before 5 years ago, there was no React. There used to be Angular. Before that, there used to be jQuery. Before that, there used to be a bunch of other technologies. Frameworks will come and go. Tomorrow, if some other big company decides, hey, you know what, I'm going to make Preact, or I don't know, React improved, don't chase frameworks. Okay.
Right.
At the end of the day, the browser understands HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I think we should focus a lot of time and effort and energy into understanding HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Right. Once we are good at that, once we can understand what the browser looks at a web page and how it decides what to do, then it's a great time to dip our toes into the waters of React.
Because React's like a library, and we when we are doing projects on Java and Python and stuff, like I tell you guys all the time that you should know the basics of how to calculate NCR, NPR, all of those things. You can following my webinars. And yes, like, does Python or Java give you out of the box ways of doing that? It can, but unless you know the basics, unless you know what a linked list is or what a hash map is, you should not use the advanced data structures that the language is giving you. So the similar thing here as well. Until you become a master in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, just learning React.js is just like learning some special tricks. That's it, right? So that's I think if I can sum up that, I think that is what you're trying to say over there, right? Yeah. So I think so. We'll just wrap it up right now with that. I just want to share one last thing with everyone. Hold on. Yeah. So this is the summary of what all we've discussed today, right? This is about the Web Master Bootcamp that we've been talking about. You can sign up on this link, which is also in the description below. Some stuff that Abhinandan was going to mention, I'll just mention it anyways, is what we're doing here is we will have many more sessions like what Abhinandan and I did right now. If you really enjoyed it, please mention in the comments below. Please put it on the chat. We'd love to hear from you. What you liked, what you didn't like. What are the kind of topics you want to go in further. This course specifically will give you 10 projects. And Abhinandan, any of these projects I can put on my resume, right? And people will, I will get tons of questions on these projects, right?
Yeah, and the best part, Aneeq, that there is no substitute for actually doing your own project.
Yes.
Right. That's what you said at the very beginning. I remember you said it takes 2 questions, Aneeq. Right. And this is not some number that's come out of our head. We've actually sat and analyzed, how many questions can you ask somebody to figure out whether they've actually done the work that they claim to have done. Right. It takes 2 questions, and any HR interviewer here who wants to give you a salary of 8 lakh an annum or 10 lakh an annum, they're going to do their homework. They will ask you those two questions.
Exactly.
Right? Much better to do those projects. If you do these 5 front-end projects, 5 back-end projects, you don't just have them as line items on your resume. You actually have a GitHub URL. You can tell your resume, your recruiter, hey, you know what, interview, just go on to thisplace.com and you can see my web application. Imagine how much of a confidence booster that is, right? The interview is going to be like, oh man, I don't even need to ask you questions. And just really, if you have this, I don't need to ask you questions.
And exactly what Abhinandan is saying, we've had people who cleared Hack with Infi, TQ, Code Betas, and when they go in front of an interviewer and they say, I've done a library management software, I have done a restaurant management software, all of these things that they've done before. These are all the typical software management stuff that we have, the typical projects that we have. And the interviewer is very quickly able to say, you've not done it, you probably got it from your college, you've just got it from somebody or some senior. Whereas all of our students who have done these kind of projects and gone, they've had a 20-minute interview in which all they had to do was discuss their project and they've got a job offer on the spot. So really, I mean, we're talking about 10 front-end projects here, 3 full stack projects. These are all things you can put on your resume. The problem you're going to have after this course is, how do I fit all of these all of these projects on my resume? Because typically you can't really put more than 4 or 5. So yeah, I mean, that's what we have. If you have any specific questions about this course, just log into the course. When you go and click this, there is the best part is there's one free module which you can go ahead and try out right now. And it's not only just like it's free and we won't be there. We are there to help you. You can interact with Abhinandan. He's online. If you have any doubts, you can go reach out to him and you can talk to him and he'll help you out over there. I'll actually show it to you as well. So if you open up the course, this is the course. Once you click it and join it, this is what you get. And just click try one free module now. And 1 second, let me just get into that course right now. Hold on. Right. So when I click that, it opens up into this page, which is like the phase 1 is liftoff. Obviously, it's going to be locked for all of you because it's unlocked for me right now, but it's going to be locked for you. And you can reach out to your mentors over here while Vinay is online. And generally, Abhinandan, he's online with me right now. Otherwise, he'll be online answering your doubts. You can reach out to Abhinandan for any doubts or queries you have with regards to this. So yeah, we are also doing a doubt clearing session twice a week. What does that mean? That you will actually get to be one-on-one with Abhinandan. And if you have any doubts or questions regarding, oh, my P tags aren't working, my H1 tags aren't working, you can just ask Abhinandan what the problem is and he'll help you out. So yes, it's been a long session, but I hope this has been enjoyable to all of you. Thanks, Abhinandan, for joining. I think we're going to do many more of these.
Really looking forward to it.
Right, and all our subscribers, please let us know what you thought about this session. We'd love to do more of these. We'd love to guide you more on what are the kind of projects you can make. And all of you who are coming here the first time, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel so that more and more people come to know about it. And don't forget to share this video with your friends, especially anybody who's in 3rd year, 4th year, or has already graduated. This course is crucial for you if you're looking to get a job, especially in this market today. So thanks, Abhinandan, for joining. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. And we'll see you all next time. All our Code Vita continues the same way, and all the upcoming placement stuff also continues the same way. And this series will also hopefully continue the same way. Thanks, everybody, for joining, and we'll catch you all soon.
Bye. Bye, guys.